Hello, welcome to Captain Dorja's Armory. This is Captain Dorja, and we are on the 8.7 test server, doing more impressions of vehicles that I've never used before. And the first one that we're going to look at is something that I've wanted to do for a while. I've been thinking about it since, well, as the obvious comparison would be, since the Chinese tanks came out, I've been thinking about this. And on the 8.6 test server, I got some action with the 110, and I wanted to do an impressions video then, but I screwed up my replay file, and I realized that it was probably going to be really crappy anyway. So I'm going to do it. I'm going to do it now. Nothing has really changed. So we're going to look at the 110 Tier 8 Chinese Heavy, and we're also going to look at the IS-3, the Soviet Tier 8 Heavy. And I think the reason why we're going to make the comparison is pretty obvious. Everybody's always saying all the Chinese tanks are just Soviet tank knockoffs, whatever. The comparison exists for a reason, and we're going to use that similarities as we evaluate the 110, and then we're going to have some gameplay to highlight what I mean. Now, the first thing we want to compare, we're just going to run through the basic numbers on both tanks. So the 110 has 1,500 hit points. Bear in mind that these numbers are for fully upgraded tanks. The 110 has 1,550 hit points. It weighs, in the setup I have here, 51.3 tons, has 580 horsepower, speed limit of 40 kilometers per hour, 30-degree traverse speed. Armor on the hull, 120 degrees on the front, 90 on the sides, 60 on the rear. And for the turret, 201 on the front, 148 on the sides, 50 on the rear. We'll look at the shell damage and penetration and all that stuff later when we get down to the actual gun. Turret traverse, 26 degrees, 380 meter view range, and 750 meter signal range. So those are some raw stats on the 110. We'll compare those to the IS-3. So the IS-3 has 1,500 hit points, which is just a tiny little bit less. The IS-3 weighs 49.9 tons, has a 700 horsepower engine. As you can see, that 700 horsepower engine is quite a bit more, and the weight of the IS-3 is about a ton and a half less. So it's got a substantially better power to weight ratio than the 110. Speed limit of 38, which is weird, because with more power to weight ratio, you'd think the IS-3 would have a higher speed limit, but it's actually 2 kilometers per hour lower. 30-degree traverse speed. Again, I think that's a little weird that the traverse speeds are the same. Now, I know that the soft stat for ground resistance isn't shown anywhere in the garage, but one thing that if you play a lot of World of Tanks, you'll notice is that if you have a tank with upgraded suspension but not upgraded engines, it'll turn worse. And I think that makes sense because you're using the engine power of the tank to force the tank to turn. So if you have a tank at a given weight with a more powerful engine, it turns better up to a maximum. So the IS-3's maximum traverse speed of 30 and the 110's maximum traverse speed of 30 are the same, which I think is odd considering that the IS-3 has a much higher power to weight ratio, but it is what it is. Armor, sorry about that. Armor, the IS-3, 110 at the front, 90 at the sides, 60 at the rear, and the turret is an impressive 220 degrees all the way around. Again, we'll look at gun stats when we get there. 26 degree rate of turn on the turret, which is slower, 350 meter view range, and 730 meter signal range, which is very, very similar. Now we're gonna take a look at the guns, because this is where things get really good. Okay, so on the left, we have the gun 122mm BL9. That is the venerable and well-deserved famous gun of the IS-3. And over here on the right, we have the gun 100mm 62 TAC 100T, the gun on the 110. Also, you use it while upgrading the Tier 9 WZ111 Model 1 TAC 4 and you use it while upgrading the WZ-120. So you're going to use this on a few Chinese tanks at Tier 8 and Tier 9. Now, caliber is essentially unimportant, but we'll look at everything else. So the rate of fire, first off, we can see right here, the rate of fire on the 100 millimeter is 6 rounds per minute versus 4.51 on the BL9. So you have much, much, much higher rate of fire with the Chinese tank, and that's significant. You know, we're not talking about a .2 round per minute difference. We're talking about a full 1.5 round per minute greater rate of fire. That's pretty substantial. Penetration, similar, 215 on the 100 millimeter and 225 on the BL9. We're not going to look at premium ammo because it's for losers, and HE penetration always sucks, so we're not going to look at that either. 390 damage for the BL9. The BL9 is famous for having a really, really high alpha, and 390 is very high. 320 for the 100 millimeter that the 110 uses, which is more standard Tier 8 heavy tank damage. It's in common with the 105 millimeter guns on the Tiger II and the 4502A, 105 millimeter gun on the Jagdpanther, and the 105 millimeter guns used by the T29, T32, and T25AT. They all deal 320 average damage, and so does this gun. 0.38 accuracy versus 0.4 accuracy, so your 100 millimeter, while not an accurate gun by any stretch of the imagination, is still more accurate than a Russian gun. And the increase from 0.4 to 0.38 is actually a pretty big deal. It means that at medium range, you can engage with a lot more confidence using this 100 millimeter gun. Now, this is a huge difference. The aiming time on the 100 millimeter is 2.9 seconds versus 3.4 seconds on the IS-3's BL9. So what this means, combining these factors, what this means is that even though you have substantially less alpha damage with the 110 and slightly lower penetration, the difference in penetration is so small that essentially what you can penetrate with the IS-3, you can penetrate with the 110. Now, the increased rate of fire means that your damage per minute is substantially higher, but your individual shot damage is not quite as high. But again, that's not such a big deal because the 110 has that great rate of fire to make up for the slightly lower alpha damage. And the increased accuracy and decreased aiming time mean two things. First of all, like I said before, you can engage to medium range a lot more comfortably. And second of all, if you're in the situation where you're playing corner games and you just want to poke around a corner, take your shot and fire, what this means is that with the 110, you need to expose yourself for far less time in order to land your shot where you want it to go. Now, one of the good things about the BL9 is the penetration and damage are so high that usually you can just poke around the corner and shoot the guy pretty much anywhere. And because of the high alpha damage, you won't have to poke around the corner very many times. Well, with the 110, you'll have to poke around the corner more times, but you won't have to be exposed each time as long. And against some opponents, you can fire 2 shots for their 1, which is a huge advantage. Essentially, being able to fire 2 for 1 means that you do not have a disadvantage in alpha damage. It basically means you have a bonus in alpha damage. So the 110's gun is just mean. It's almost a BL9 that's just been made better, in my opinion. It's slightly more accurate, it aims way faster, and it has a lot more damage per minute, with the only drawback being that your alpha damage is a little less and that it loses 10 millimeter penetration. Now, the other thing I want to take a look at before we get into battle is the armor, because the armor on the IS-3 is the other thing that makes this tank so special. The IS-3 features the well-known Soviet pike nose armor configuration that's common in World of Tanks it can be found on the IS-3, the IS-8, and the IS-7. Those are the most prevalent examples. The Object 268 Tier 10 tank destroyer also has a pike nose armor because it's based on the hull of the IS-8. Essentially, this is armor that's pre-angled, so all you do is you point your nose straight at the enemy, and shots coming in are more likely to ricochet due to the sloping. You can see the vertical sloping here and the horizontal angling. present in this armor. The IS-3, for having only 110 millimeters of frontal armor, is very difficult to penetrate. Also, the lower plate on the tank is quite small. It is vulnerable, but it's quite small. When you're coming up a hill with the IS-3, your lower plate is pretty exposed, and a lot of the times it gets wrecked. Other features of the IS-3's armor is the turret, 220 all the way around. It means you basically don't want to fire at the turret of an IS-3 from the front, side, or back. You pretty much always want to go for the hull. There are a few weak spots on the IS-3's turret, though, that are worth firing at. If you have a tall tank like a KV-5 or a Tiger II, and you can depress your gun and hit this hatch, it is very weak. If you're unable to do that, this area right here, these are actually weak spots as well, and you will do damage if you hit them. So keep that in mind in close contact with IS-3s. Now, the other main feature of the IS-3's armor is it's got really good spaced armor on the sides. Basically, your shot penetrates right here, but the actual hull of the tank doesn't start until more around here somewhere. So you have a lot of spaced armor effect on this thing. The side armor of the IS-3 is pretty magical. So armor-wise, even though your armor's not really that thick on the IS-3, except on the turret where it's really thick everywhere, the tank is very well armored. Now with the 110, my impression of its armor from a very few battles I've played, and from what I know about other tanks, is that I don't think it's going to be quite as good, but in some ways, I think it's going to have a couple of situations where the armor will actually be better. First of all, the 110 has the same pike nose as the IS-3, except it's more accentuated. It's got more vertical slope, and it has more horizontal slope, and it's thicker. 10 millimeters thicker with more slope in both directions. So look at that. Now look at that. See, this is much more vertical than this, and the increased amount of sloping in the horizontal direction is substantial. Plus the armor itself is thicker. So I think if you hit the 110 on its pike nose, it's even less likely to penetrate. And I have fired my my Object 704 directly at the center of this tank's front and bounced off before with the BL-10. And that gun has phenomenal penetration. Next thing that I think about this tank's armor is that the lower plate is a much bigger weakness. So watch it. Again, notice the size of the lower plate on the 110 and compare that to the IS-3's. The IS-3's is much lower, smaller, and less straight up and down. So I think lower plate management on this tank is going to be important. But if you play a lot of German tanks, you should be pretty used to that. Next, the turret. The turret on this tank is the same turret as the IS-8, and while it is good, it's not legendary like the IS-3 turret. Mostly because the sides and rear of this turret are incredibly weak. 60 on the sides, 90 on the rear, or 90 on the sides, 60 on the rear rather. Shots are going to go through easily. Secondly, these hatches frontally are weak points. Third, where the side of the turret actually begins on this turret is rather ambiguous. And even though the turret is fairly well shaped, I have noticed IS-8s take frontal penetrating hits right in here from tanks with weapons that are really not all that powerful. So that 201 millimeters, while it is pretty thick, it's not God mode armor like you can get on something like a T-34 or even on the IS-3. So you have to be careful with your turret. Now, we've been in the garage now for a really long time, so I'm going to get some battles in this thing. We're going to get some battles recorded, and then we can draw our final conclusions from those. So, thanks for being patient. Now let's blow stuff up. Alright, so we're loading into the battle now. As you can see, we're on Mountain Pass, standard battle, Tier 8 match. A lot of Tier 8s, which is fine with me. I don't mind a lot of Tier 8s. You can see the enemy team has a couple of little, scout tanks. Our team as well. I feel like this is a pretty even match. Just for the record, I am doing this commentary live because part of what screwed me up on finishing this video last time was when I wanted to actually do my commentary. I put it off so long that I never got it completed. So I'm going to live comment on these matches with the 110. Now, I do apologize. This is probably going to be a pretty long video. If the 15-minute garage session didn't tip you to that, I just will give you the official heads up right now. So what I'm going to be doing with this tank right here is I'm going to use this tank's speed, which is pretty good, to try and blitz my way past the death trap over here, this gap. Now, hopefully that E25 didn't make it really obvious that there's tanks over here. I really hate getting spotted from over there in side shot, so I'm going to hope that, oh wow, that was bad. I think they might have made that steeper. I haven't noticed that happen before. Okay, so that T-71 is going to be spotting us. Now, this gun is more accurate than a normal Soviet gun, but that doesn't mean I want to be taking, 300-meter shots on the move at a light tank. So we're going to push in close. I've got 3 E25s backing me up. I feel like we ought to be able to take advantage of a T-71. Now, we'll let the gun aim. T-71 knows what I'm doing. He's not having it. Our E-25s are giving him a good beat down. Alright, there's our IS-3. Enemy IS-3 sighted. That's a good thing for us to attack, especially since we're commenting on the differences between the two vehicles. So I'm going to go after this IS-3 right now. You can see no problem penetrating the IS-3, and we managed to hit for 348 damage. Pretty good hit. E-25s are savaging this guy. We'll reload, put another big hit into him, blocked by our friendly E-25. Now, time to play the attack tank. No idea what else is around this corner, but this is an IS class, essentially, so we're going to assault. Okay, the 110 angles against me, which was probably a mistake, allowed me to very easily penetrate his upper plate. He's staying angled. You can see my shot hit his sloped pike nose as he backed up, so I was unable to penetrate. Now, I am not angled against him. I'm angled against him very poorly right now, but it doesn't matter because he's distracted by the E-25s. So we're able to put a shot straight through his angled frontal plate. And with this tank, you don't want to angle your front plate. You want to point straight at the enemy. You can see on me, that enemy 110 right there, he fired exactly into my lower plate, which was what I wanted to do to him the first time, but I just ended up hitting his upper plate. But at his angle he was presenting, it didn't matter. See, he had angled himself to me both times when I shot him, which essentially removes the sloping on his armor and means I only had to defeat 120 millimeters. And with a gun that has 215 pen, that's not an issue. So we're getting a good look at the capability of these E-25s right here. Got a pack of E-25s working together. Very, very nasty. They're just able to charge down everything the enemy has in such rapidity. Their ability to shift and their damage per minute from those 20 round per minute guns is just extreme. So our base is being capped. We've got tank destroyers heading away from the base, and an E-25 heading towards the base, and I'm heading towards the base. Our SE-100Y is turned around. He's also heading towards the base. This is where the flat speed advantage of the IS-3 would be pretty nice. I'd also like to kind of take a pot shot at that Lerva, but I'm not going to. He's a sideshow. We're not going to make it back in time, so this is an exercise in futility. And, yeah, our base has been captured. So that was a disappointing match. I feel like I did my job to the best of my abilities. I assaulted that flank. Unfortunately, I only ran into 2 vehicles. But in rapid succession, we were able to push out 700 damage on the IS-3 and another 670 onto the 110. Just because this gun is more accurate than the BL-9 doesn't mean you're suddenly a sniper tank. This tank wants to operate at very close range, and it's an assault tank. You want to get driving towards the enemy, and you want to run them down. Right, so we're going to jump into another match real quick. This time, next match here, we're going to take the IS-3. Okay, so we're loading into the IS-3 match, basically the worst match I could possibly have gotten. We're on Ensk, which is good, but as you can see, it's all tier 10s except for 5 people. The enemy team have a T-28 and a Tiger II, and my team has a T-54, an AMX-50 Foch, and an IS-3. So, we're the real underdog here. We're going to have to see what we can do. If this match goes horribly, horribly wrong, I will not use it in my video. So, I am going to get the hell out of the field. I do not want to be in the field. Those tier 10 mediums will cut me up. Those 50 Foches, those 50 Foch 155s, can kill me in 2 hits, and still have a third shell left to do half the HP to a tier 10 medium. So, I'm not going to fight them. I'm just glad they only have one T-57 heavy, because those things are stupid. Right, I am going to try and roll with this Batchat. Not directly with him. I don't want to be... Batchat drivers on the test server tend to be pretty aggressive. But we're backed up by a 50 Foch 155, an Object 263, and a T-62 Alpha. So we have some good firepower here. So I think I'm fairly safe to roll up with these guys and engage. Now I'm going to try and protect the flank of the 50 Foch 155, because in a situation like this, I am not a mainline combatant. I am a support tank. And we can see an enemy 121 and an enemy T-57 heavy. I'm going to do something a little risky and see what's around this corner. The enemy have very fast tank destroyers, so it is very possible they could have some fast tank destroyer support already in position where it could really obliterate me. Okay, now the 121 is basically destroyed. I'll try and snipe him. Some wreckage in the way. Okay, so our Batchat's getting a little too aggressive here, and he's just been wiped off the map by that T-57. We go for an ambush shot on the T-57. Alright, success. We managed to put the ambush shot into the T-57 heavy and kill him. Now, this is not normally what the IS-3 is for. Generally, the IS-3 is a main force frontline assault tank. And because we're playing in a match of 12 or 13 tier 10s, I'm playing as a flanking support tank. Now, this is a very, very aggressive move here, and it's probably not a very smart move, but we're going to make it anyway. We got the drop on that guy, and I want to put a hit into him. Plus, I see that I have a 50 Foch 155 potentially moving up in support, so I want to exploit this gap while it exists, basically. Okay, our team has collapsed in the field, but I really don't care, just because I know that if I go back, that's not going to make much of a difference. The enemy T-110E5 has been eviscerated by our tier 10 tank destroyers, so again, just looking for more opportunities to exploit some enemy flanks and weaknesses. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come back over here and take shots at that Tiger II. He's the most vulnerable thing I can see down there. Oh, God. Shoot the Batchat and get out. Okay, got a hit into the Batchat. We got out. We got a good hit into that Batchat, too. Alright. Oh, my God. I'm on fire. That's not good. Object 268 gets the drop on me and does 1,000 friggin' damage. I was lucky he only did 1,000 damage. A TD like that, he hits for almost 1,000 just in his shot, plus the fire. That should have been so much worse. Okay, now this Super Foch, I am not going to be taking the brunt of his fire. Oh man, that was a fail right there. If I'd been able to track him in that position, our 263 could have devastated him. Okay, I might have a shot on the Tiger II coming in just a second. Oh, Tiger II, you cloaking son of a bee. Well, okay, so what I'm going to do here, I'm still playing the support tank role. What I'm going to try and do... Okay, there's the 50 Foch 155. He's maneuvering. against our tank destroyers. So I need to get out of where I was because it was a death trap being there. So I'm going to take a risk, and I'm going to push on this 50 Foch. Okay, I got a hit in him from behind. Took his track off. There's a Tiger 2 behind me, but really, I don't care. Alright, Tiger 2, or the M48 Patton came up and killed me. I did not expect that. What I was trying to do there was to just occupy the Foch long enough, even if I died from the Tiger 2, that our 263 could roll on the Foch and kill him, but it didn't work. Right, so let's exit battle and pop into the 110 again. Alright, we're loading into battle in the 110. You can see the matchmaker here is very unfavorable. Our team is all tier 10s except for me and an MT-25. And their team is all tier 10s except for an Arty and an MT-25. There's also a lot of artillery, and there are a lot of very large tank destroyers. Those FV-15Bs will one-shot me with AP rounds, and the E4 will two-shot me with AP rounds. So, you're going to have to be careful here. The T-62A has amazing damage per minute, so do the Leopard 1s. The T-57 Heavy can kill me in one clip, and I don't know if the Batchat actually can one-clip me, but it probably can. Honestly, out of everything on the enemy team, if there's one thing that I had to engage and I just straight up fight, I'd most want to fight the IS-3. But we don't get to choose like that. We get to just fight what we encounter, so we're going to try and make the best of this. Another thing that makes this matchmaker pretty unfortunate for me is, well, twofold. I'm alone, and I don't know this map very well. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a place to hunker down, where I can just kind of take some pot shots. This is a horrible position. There's no field of fire from there. Okay, let's see if we can pot shot this T-57. Now, this is a situation where I do have an advantage over an IS-3. Bad shot, and it missed anyway. And the reason why I say that is because, well, the IS-3 has more firepower per shot. It's a lot less likely to hit. It doesn't fire nearly as fast, and my penetration is basically the same. So we're going to use the quick reload here to ninja the kill on the enemy T-57 Heavy. With an IS-3, I would have still been reloading right there, and, well, I wouldn't have gotten that kill. Somebody else probably would have killed him. Oh, Object 263, I don't want to fight that. Basically, I don't have the penetration to damage him at all. I don't think I can pin him anywhere on his front that I'm likely to hit at, well, our range is 300 meters. You can see he's able to easily penetrate my front armor right on the hatch, but I'm pretty sure from where he was firing, he would have pinned my turret pretty much anywhere on the front. That's a very heavily armed tier 10.
Penetration.
Right after saying that, we actually managed to bounce one off our mantlet from the FV-215B, so that was pretty lucky. Okay, I have no shots right here on anything, so I pull back. I'm going to try and get a shot in on the IS-3, no joy. I don't want to get hit by that 215B, but I've got a pretty fast-firing, fast-aiming gun, so I can take the chance to stop and fire at him, and you see we got a good hit right there. Now, I'm trying to figure out how I can engage this IS-3, because this is a problem. I think what I'm honestly going to have to do is try and take care of this 215B, and, oh, look at that. Come on, side shot. Come on, side shot. Okay, I missed my shot, and I just took 2 huge hits. The Batchat, I did not know the Batchat was up there. I thought I got hit by just the 263, but I was also taking fire from the Batchat, and as soon as the Batchat opened fire on me, I was dead. So I think that actually did illustrate some of the properties of this tank that I wanted to look at. All right, so we have some end of battle statistics for our 110 match right there. Surprise, surprise, we didn't finish that high on the team, but what is kind of funny is we did outdamage a couple of their real tier 10s, which is pretty funny. We fired 7 shots, 5 direct hits, 4 penetrations, for a grand total of 1,200 damage. One of those shots was a lower damage hit on the T-57, so in 2 shots to him, we only did 520 damage. We'd be expecting more like 650, so that's a little below the average. But on the 215B, we rolled a little above average and got 17 or 700. So it all comes out in the wash. For those 4 hits, that's a totally, or for those 5 hits rather, that's totally average damage on 4 penetrations. You can see we're firing in that match at about 350 meters, I think, and we managed 5 for 7 hits with 4 penetrations for the average damage of 1,200. I think if I'd been using an IS-3 in that situation, I probably still would have gotten off 7 shots, but I think I would have been doing good to hit 4 times. And of those 4 shots, 4 hits, if I'd managed 2 hits on the same 2 vehicles, probably would have achieved a little bit more damage. But if we'd managed to hit on the 263 like we did in this match, if we assume even hit distribution on the same targets, we would have had 1 hit on the T-57, 2 hits on the FV-215B, and 1 hit on the 263. So only 3 of those shots would have gone in, and on average I would have actually done about 300 less damage. So you can see the strengths and weaknesses of the IS-3s, of the 110's gun versus the IS-3's. Alright, we're loading into a match on Mountain Pass in the IS-3. Again, you can see the matchmaker is very unfavorable. All tier 10s except for 2 enemy tanks and 3 friendly tanks, and one of the enemy non-tier 10s is a T-95. So basically, I can't do jack against the T-95. Friendly team, we have a T-54 and an ISU-152 in addition to myself. So let's see what the IS-3 can do in unfriendly matchmaker. I think I'll be heading down where the IS-7 actually just pinged, because that's an area where I'm familiar with how to fight. The other thing that I might do is I think I might actually play Overwatch on the middle and try and get some side hits into their big guys as they move over to the J area, and even potentially shoot up their mediums while they go down into the valley. So I think I'm actually going to do that. Our 215B really needs to stop spamming. I don't want to ignore list people on the test server, for crying out loud. Okay, you can see our T-57 is taking an Overwatch position. I'm going to take an Overwatch position as well. I don't have the best gun depression, but if we can manage to hit one of those leopards, that would be great. Okay, so this isn't the best location ever, and when I get spotted, I'll have to get out of here ASAP, because that Conqueror gun carriage and GW Type E will be all over me. Okay, you can see there's FV-215B. Hit him, bounced, GWE just blew off 900 of my health. Repair kit, getting the hell out of there. Okay, so we did not encounter any of the mediums we were hoping for. What we did encounter is a Heshmobile with arty support. So that is not good. Now, we're going to be an idiot, and we're going to poke again. Okay, there's nothing there for me to do other than to die. So back with the original plan of getting the heck out of there. Oh my word, that GW didn't even hit. That was splash damage. And that was pretty soon after I was spotted. So, you know, for all the people out there crying and moaning that artillery is now useless, well, there ain't any other tier 10 vehicles in the game that can do 900 damage on a miss. So, keep that in perspective, RD players. You shouldn't get everything. Anyway, back to the subject at hand. Our 50 Foch 155 is under heavy duress, so our T-57 and an IS-4 are coming to help. Now, hopefully this Patton... Okay, this Patton is hella exposed, but he's getting battered. Try a snapshot of the 121. Miss. Okay, I want to get in front of this T-57 for two reasons. First of all, he's a more valuable target than me. I want to meat shield him a little bit. And also, if I don't, he'll just kill everything before I can even aim. Okay, so I'm going to pre-aim the corner and wait. Although with that IS-4 and that Foch right there, they're never going to round the corner. They don't need to. Oh, come on, 110. Come on. Come on, E5. You know you want to do it. Yeah, come on, E5. You know you want to do it. Do it again, you person. Try and pre-aim for his hatch. He knows we're here. He's waiting. He's got bigger fish to fry. Thinking if I push up in here where my retreat is impossible, he'll come around more. Okay, that E5 knows how to poke. He's not an idiot. Of course, it would help if everyone wasn't wider than me. It means that, okay, we managed a shot onto the 50B, and the 50B fires back, and just auto-pens. I guess that's pretty, reasonable considering that he's a tier 10, but, I mean, with the angle that he was hitting that plate, I feel like there was an even chance that even his gun should have bounced there, and it just goes right through. So we managed to land one damaging hit with, 3 shots fired or 4 shots fired? And in return for that minuscule amount of damage, we've lost all our health and are very rapidly losing this match. Our team has totally lost control of this match. Okay, the T-57 is able to knock out the Leopard. Our 50 Foch is trying to get into a position, I think, to knock out the... Oh, crap, I forgot about the 121. He's going to ice me right here. You can see I missed my shot at the 121. The long aim time of this gun means that in a situation like this, unless you're fully pre-aimed, it takes so long to aim that... Oh man, the temptation to just pull the trigger early is very strong. Not able to pin the E5 from that angle. No surprise there. The 121 is still going for us. I'm going to try and put the kibosh onto this E5. Wow. Very good damage roll on this lower plate. And I don't have no idea where that shot hit. I think it hit our hull, but it's hard to tell. With the position I was in, I was pretty well hauled down to him, I think. But he might have just used a heat round. It's hard to tell. When you die is the hardest to tell where the shell actually came from, so I think he just shot through my hull, but whatever. So you can see in that the aim time and the low accuracy were making even hitting the target in the situation difficult. Again, this is an extreme circumstance because everything I'm facing is a tier 10. But, I mean, in firing at that 121, it was especially evident how much you just want to short aim so that you don't have to be exposed for 3.5 seconds. But we managed to get some good damage in before we went down. I think we did alright. So we're going to go exit to the garage now. Alright, so we have post-battle results for that match we just had. Again, no real shocker. The IS-3 did not come out near the top. Statistics, we managed 7 shots fired, 5 hits, 4 penetrations, only 1100 damage, which is a little low. You'd be expecting more like 1600 for that. We got a slightly below average roll there. Slightly below average roll there. So we must have, we had one good damage roll on this guy. So we must have also got a really, really low damage roll on him. Actually, I think one of the penetrating hits was a detracking shot. Because, did I do any critical damage to him? Yeah, I got his tracks. So one of our penetrating hits on this E5 was a detracking shot. So you can see that in 7 shots fired, we managed 5 hits, which is the same as we managed with the 121, or with the 110, in a similar situation. So I'm surprised the gun performed as accurately as it did, to be honest. And we managed the same number of penetrations as well, but one of those penetrations was just a detracking shot, and we got 1 damage roll that was massively over average, and even still, we did not manage as much damage as the 110. So I think that actually does give a reasonable comparison of the guns on these two tanks. As far as the actual performance of the armor, getting into all tier 10 matches, you almost can't even compare the armor. I did manage to bounce a shot off my turret front of the 110 from a FV215B183, which is pretty surprising. But at the same time, I was penetrated at long range on the turret by an Object 263. And with the IS-3, I think the kill shot from the E5 hit me right about here, but it might have actually hit on the turret. But if that were the case, it would almost certainly have been a heat round. Again, it's hard to get an accurate outlook on armor from the test server because of the fact that if you drive a tier 8, you spend so much time fighting tier 10s, and premium ammo tends to be even more prevalent than on the live server, just because they give you so much money in gold. I mean, I have 65 million credits left over, and if I wanted to, I could sell like 10 vehicles in my garage that I know I'm not going to use, and I could just run a full rack of premium on everything with premium fire extinguishers and, you know, all that crap. So, armor performance you kind of had to take with a grain of salt. The reason why I so rarely bring the premium ammo on the test server is because I'm here to test the capability of the tank, not the capability of my wallet. So knowing whether or not I can purchase my way through an enemy isn't as important to me as knowing whether or not I need to purchase my way through an enemy. And honestly, there are very few situations where you actually need premium ammo. Usually it just makes it so that you don't need to play as good. But that's a different crusade for another time. So, I hope you enjoy my impressions on the 110. I think this tank is going to be an IS-3 that is just essentially more badass in combat, but a little bit slower. But I'm not worried about that little bit less slow, because this is still going to be classified as a quicker heavy tank. So I think this tank should be a real treat to drive. I'm really looking forward to getting one on the live server. If you've watched my past videos, you know that I've got an IS-2. I just got my IS-2 gun fully upgraded, so that's nice. So I'm getting closer to the 110 every day. Well, this has been a long one. I think it's been a pretty good one. I hope you agree with me. But until next time, this is Captain Dorja for Captain Dorja's Armory, and just remember, guys, you can never have enough big guns.